Hey there, welcome to Freak Boy Runs. Or maybe I'm lucky and it's welcome back to Freak Boy Runs. I'd love for that to be the case. Today what I want to talk about is some of the tricks your mind can play on you. And you know, this came to mind to me to talk about because of something that went on my last couple of long runs, and I'm still not completely sure whether I've got something to be concerned about or not. I'm tending towards not, but what is happening is my left ankle keeps sort of locking up on me, and it's been doing this in the last couple of long runs. Last weekend it did it, this weekend it did it. But it only really seems to do it when I'm thinking about it. And if I can distract myself, it seems to go away. And that really makes me suspicious that there's a very large psychological component to it. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this topic, because I think it happens to runners a lot. It's definitely happened to me a lot, where your mind just convinces you that you've got a problem, sometimes even if you don't. And when you think about it, all pain is in your head. It really is. I mean, what is pain when you really think it through? It's an electrical signal that is coming from some part of your body to your brain, telling your brain that there's a problem in that part of your body. So what's to stop your brain from just manufacturing that signal on its own? That's going to feel just as real as an actual pain that is due to something wrong. So I think it's very common. I know it's very common for runners to experience this. You know, a lot of times they'll call it paranoia when you're coming towards the end of your training block, and maybe at the end of the training block or during your taper, you start noticing little niggles here and there and start second guessing yourself, and then eventually even convincing yourself that there's a problem. So I don't know if this particular issue with my left ankle locking up is yet something to be concerned about. I'm hopeful that it's not. I think I will take some evasive action and do some mobility type of work. I'm going to need to do some research. I've pled guilty already in the past to the fact that I'm not very good about doing mobility. I've done very little as part of my training regimen to date. So maybe this is a good reason for me to do some research and start integrating it. Make sure that this ankle doesn't truly cause me a problem. I've had quite a few other examples of these phantom style pains, you know, throughout my, let's call it, a running career so far. Yeah, I mean, just going back to my very first marathon. Now, it started out by definitely overtraining. I know I overtrained, and I ended up having a groin strain. And that happened, I can't remember exactly how long before the marathon, but maybe like a month or so. So I had enough time to rest it up. It got a little bit exacerbated because while I was resting it up, I was still doing a lot of walking, and I was crossing the street and a car came up from behind me and did not see me. even though I had a headlamp on and everything. And I didn't see him because he was coming from behind me and it was dark. And he almost hit me. And I had to do this spin maneuver to turn around and kind of run back, just 2 steps backwards to avoid being run over. Ended up falling on the ground right beside the guy's front tire, like maybe an inch from his front tire, laying on the ground with the guy looking out his window down at me going, "I'm sorry, I didn't see you." Yeah, clearly I had a headlamp on.
Runners, get out of the way.
Hey, Kelly. But that exacerbated that injury just maybe 2 weeks before the marathon. Still felt like I had enough time, but I was really worried, and I was convinced it was hurting the day of, and I wrapped it up with an ACE bandage and just went out there and just thought I'd do my best. And it didn't bother me at all throughout that race, and I ended up having really no issues with it there afterwards either. So you just, sometimes you don't know, and you have to try and see what happens. And that's what happened in that case. It was my first marathon. Didn't know what I was doing really, and I just went for it with an ACE bandage on it. Probably didn't need that ACE bandage, but I did that, and it turned out to be fine. So not really a phantom pain in that case, but just an example of how the paranoia can get to you. Let's take a look at the nice lady on the horse. Another one back there. Hello.
Hello.
So another example of a phantom pain was for my very first half marathon. So again, this is early days, and it started as a real injury that was due to overtraining, because at that time I didn't know what I was doing. I was running too fast, I was running too many miles, I was doing everything wrong. And this half marathon I almost dropped out of, because even though I'd been resting and trying to give the injury time to recover before that half marathon, it just kept bothering me. And eventually I just decided, no, I'm not going to be a quitter. I'm going to try to do this half marathon. I had to drive out of town for it. I didn't want to disappoint my friends by dropping out, so I just went down and did it. And you know, even up to the day before, in the morning of, that groin injury was really bugging me, and I was very concerned. But again, not wanting to look like a quitter, not wanting to disappoint other people and myself, so I ran it. Even though it was bothering me, I wrapped it up and just thought, well, if it's too much while I'm running, I just stop and walk. It's not the end of the world. I ran this half marathon, and I was pretty happy with my time. It was my first one, so it was an automatic PB. That was cool. But by the end of that half marathon, it wasn't bothering me really while I ran, but then when I finished, oh smokes, it felt like it was on fire. It was crazy hurting, to the point where I was having trouble standing. And so the people I was with, we all gathered afterwards, and they were meeting some other people, at the race. I was going crazy because it was hurting so much standing. And finally we went and got our breakfast that they gave us at the event, and all we did was go sit down and eat that breakfast for maybe 30 minutes. And after we stood up and threw our plates in the trash, started walking to the car, it suddenly hit me. The pain was gone. And I'm thinking, wow, how is this possible? It was on fire just 30 minutes prior and before I sat down for breakfast. But just sitting down for breakfast, distracting myself with the food and with the conversation with my friends and talking about the race and just not thinking about it. And the next thing I knew, it was gone. And it never bothered me after that. It was incredible. And so that was kind of a very early indicator to me, very early on in my running journey, that your brain just plays such a significant role in these pains and the manifestation of these pains in your head, and the ability of your brain to just convince you that you've got a problem when maybe you don't. And I do want to stress through all of these that I'm not saying ignore pain, but you have to be able to consider whether or not your brain may be trying to fool you. Another type of paranoia example for me was the 2022 Dallas Marathon. I'd had COVID just a couple of weeks before the marathon. That is to say, I got it maybe 3.5 weeks before the marathon and got over it. I think I tested negative like a week and a half before the marathon. So right there, I was nervous as to whether or not my lungs were going to be in good shape, if I was going to be fully recovered. At that time was also when I had just lost my sister, so I really had no idea how the grief was going to affect me, because I was very much at the peak of my grief from that event in my life. And I just went into the marathon not knowing, just so unsure. And really, when I think about it, pretty much every marathon I've gone into, I've been unsure of myself in one way or another. It just kind of seems to come with the territory. But I just went in thinking, I've done the training, do what I trained for, and see what happens. Ended up getting about a 3-minute PB in that marathon. I credited my sister for helping me through it and being here in my heart with me, running that race and pushing me through. And at the end, my lungs were fine and I was fine. And I was really happy that I went in with the attitude that I did. A great example of a combo paranoia, phantom pain situation was the 2023 Dallas Marathon. Now, I did go in to that marathon concerned with my right hamstring. I had injured my right hamstring almost 9 months prior to that, doing hill repeats again, overtraining, but overtraining at a point of my journey that I should have known better. Nonetheless, you try and learn these lessons and move on. But this hamstring injury, which has actually been bothering me for almost 10 years, it's something that dates back to playing soccer back in 2010 or 2011, I can't remember exactly. But I had shooting pains just a week prior to the Dallas Marathon. And one thing about shooting pains is you can pretty much be sure that if it's a shooting pain, it's something to be concerned about. Shooting pains don't, for me anyways, generally occur as phantom pains. I was having shooting pains just while walking only a week prior to the marathon. It really had me concerned. So I went into the marathon with the attitude of that I had trained for a certain pace and I was going to try to run that pace. But if I even once experienced a shooting pain during the race, I was going to stop and walk, because I was also doing the Boston Marathon in the spring of 2024, so that was only 4 months out, and I really didn't want to risk the Boston Marathon by overdoing it in that Dallas Marathon. So I ran with that attitude, just thinking, okay, just watch out for the shooting pain. If you experience a shooting pain, stop immediately. If you don't, keep going. And miraculously, I had no shooting pains throughout the entire marathon. I ran at my intended marathon pace, in fact faster. I ended up with a 10+ minute PB and never had a shooting pain at all. So it just goes to show that, you know, sometimes the body heals faster than you expect. And I suppose maybe those shooting pains could have been phantom pains. I don't like to think of shooting pains as phantom pains, though. They're more of a concern for me. But that plan of stopping if I experienced a shooting pain and keeping on going as long as I didn't really worked out for that race. That's going to do it for the Phantom Pain Maranoia episode. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment and share if you have the time to spare. And until next time, on Freak Boy Runs, Freak Boy out!